may be not aware of what is jhuming. Jhuming is a cultivation practice which was practiced by the earlier forest dwellers. These days also it is commonly practiced in the northeastern states of the country. Now under this jhuming, what exactly happens? A piece of land is cleared, all the vegetation that is available over there is cut down and it is burned, and then in the ashes that are left, in the ashes the seeds are sown, whatever is to be grown. And then after 2 to 3 years of cultivation on the same land, because the land loses its fertility, so the nutrient value of the land becomes low. So these people, they used to move from that particular area to the next nearby area. So by doing so, they were degrading the land, they were cutting the forest, they were damaging the trees, the wood that was available over there. So this was about jhuming. I hope it is clear to all of you. Children, these tribal societies which were there, or the communities which were there, they were quite similar to each other, but then of course the various communities which were there, they had different practices. Now in the beginning of the 19th century, when the British started interfering in these areas, in the forest areas, all of a sudden they became united, because they all were suffering, they all were punished by the British by implementing various forest laws which stated that these people, the forest dwellers, are not supposed to collect any forest good that is available. Now whatever was available in the forest was taken by these British and they were sold in the market. And to ensure that these people, the Adivasi communities or the tribals, they don't collect the goods, guards were made from the villages of these tribal societies only. Children, with this we come to an end of this topic, first topic, that is changes in tribal life. Now coming to the second topic, that is construction of railway network cutting across tribal lands. Children, under the construction of a railway network cutting across tribal lands. Now when British, they wanted to have a better transport and communication system to control the vast expense that they had made over a period of time in India. Now for that, what they did, the British built railways in different parts of the country. There was large scale destruction of forests in the early years of railway expansion. This meant that large number of tribals were driven out of their lands. Forcefully these people were thrown away from their native places. Now in order to have easy access to forest land and wood, the British government created a forest department in 1964. Rules and regulations that threatened the tribal way of life came into existence. Children, I was talking about these rules and regulations only, the laws that had come by the British. Forests were declared as the state properties. Small blocks of reserved forests were created in the hill areas like Kumaon and Garhwal to furnish permanent supply of fuel and timber. Rules were framed for regulating the chopping of trees for fuel and fodder by villagers and tribal people. Now all these measures which were taken up by the British directly affected the settlement pattern and survival modes of the Indian tribes. Now this part, we come to an end of this part. This portion, this topic basically tells you that how for the construction of the railway network and to have a good communication system, the forest areas were captured by the British through various laws and rules and regulations also, you can say. Now coming to the next topic of the chapter. That is British policy towards tribes. Children, this British policy towards tribes, it tells you that during the British rule, the commercialization of agriculture, tightening of government control over forest zones for revenue purposes, and utilization of forest wealth for the benefit of the urban population resulted in the penetration of tribal areas by outsiders. Now, penetration means of coming into. Now, this included moneylenders, contractors, traders, and government officials who, for their own interest, disturbed the social, cultural, and economic lives of the tribes and exposed them to exploitation. Children, in the previous chapter, when we read about the rural life and the colonization, I told you about zamindars, I told you about the moneylenders. Now, in the forest areas also, these moneylenders were there. Now, these were those outsiders who penetrated inside the forest areas and disturbed the tribal lives. Children, I hope this much is clear to all of you. Children, due to the penetration of the outsiders, these tribals, those who were there, they resented this. They tried to, show their aggression to these people by not, following their rules or not listening to them what they were saying. And there was, one more law that was initiated by the British, that was the Criminal Tribes Act. Under this Criminal Tribes Act, any tribal group or any tribal community people coming and intervening or disturbing the forest areas which were protected by the British, if they were found stealing or taking away any of the forest goods, they were considered as the criminal tribes. So this was also something which people resented, and they did not like this idea of the British to make them as criminals, because these people, they believe that whatever is nature, whatever nature or the Mother Earth is giving to them should be free to them. They should not be penalized, or they should not be punished for taking or using these forest goods. Now, because of this, what happened? Many of the revolts happened. Now, after this, the next topic that we are going to take up is the various revolts that took place. Various revolts that took place in Eastern India, Central India, Northeast regions. Children, talking about the talking about revolt in the Eastern India, we will be reading about Gonds. These Gonds were the people who lived in the present state of Odisha. Now, these Gonds, they occupied a large tract of territory called Kondmals, neighboring Odisha. They revolted in 1846. The revolt was suppressed in 1848. And they finally submitted to British rule. The Santals, inhabiting the territory of Bihar adjoining Bengal, revolted in 1855 to 1856. And you know why they revolted? Because of the grievances that the Mahajans, those who were there, they were quite oppressive. The Santals also rebelled under the leadership of two brothers, Sido and Kanu. Children, this tribal revolts in Eastern India. See, you can see a picture over here. It shows about the Santhal rebellion, and it is like, it is given once upon a time the Konds occupied a large tract of territory called Kondmals. This is just now I have told you. Now, this also I have read for you. In 1917, the Santhals again revolted. Mayurbhanj, the same year, witnessed the revolt of the Kukis in Manipur. Both were suppressed. In 1870, the Kharwar rebellion took place, and in 1882, the Kutch Nagas of Chahar revolted under the leadership of Samdhun. So this was about the Eastern India revolt. Now coming to the tribal revolts in central India. Children, talking about the tribal revolts in central India, particularly Chota Nagpur. The Ho tribe of Chota Nagpur was led by petty chieftains. One of them, the Raja of Orahat, resisted the British but was forced to pay an annual tribute to the British. Yet his subjects did not allow the British to enter their territory. They submitted only in 1827 when the British burned several of their villages and killed a large number of people. Children, now moving towards the Mundas. The Mundas, another tribe in Chota Nagpur, revolted in 1831 and were joined by the Hos. The revolt spread over a large area including Ranchi, Hazaribagh, Palmua and Manbhum. It could be suppressed only after extensive military operations in March 1832. The Hos, however, remained reluctant to submit and military operations were carried against them again in 1836 and 1837 till they finally gave in. In 1899 and 1900, Birsa Munda revolted in the areas around Ranchi. The growing encroachment by the outsiders, Dhikus, Birsa Munda was born and brought up in Chaibasa area in the present-day Jharkhand and had grown up listening to the tales of the uprising of the Mundas against the Dhikus. When he grew up, he too became the leader of the Munda tribe due to his reforming ideas. He urged Mundas to give up drinking and witchcraft to maintain the golden age of the past. He wished to drive out the British, moneylenders and zamindars from Chota Nagpur. He was against the British because they were destroying the traditional land system of the Mundas by allowing the moneylenders and zamindars to take control of their land. Soon Birsa Munda was able to garner and mobilize his tribesmen against the British. He was imprisoned in 1895 and was released after 2 years. Birsa then started mobilizing people from other villages too against the British, terming them as Ravana. His followers began to target police stations and churches and hoisted their own flag of Birsa rule. Children, this is the picture of Birsa Munda, who was behind the Munda rebellion. Children, this is another picture of Birsa Munda when he was preaching his followers. So children, that was a time like when Birsa Munda came into the picture of revolts. That time was quite tough for these people because the British exploitation and oppression was at the peak. Children, in 1900 Birsa Munda died of cholera. The British were able to suppress the Munda movement immediately after his death. Children, now talking about the tribal revolts in Northeast.